Hi there, I'm Catherine, and this is a recording of the first English online tutoring session on Nagwa Classes. English is one of the 4 subjects commonly assessed in the 11 Plus and tests students' understanding of spelling, punctuation, grammar, and reading skills. In this session, we discussed a few core concepts that commonly come up in the English exam. So please enjoy this video and subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. Hello. Good evening, lovely to meet you all. So it's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the first ever Nagwa Classes English 11 Plus session, first of 4. I hope you're all well. So this is me, I'm Catherine, I'm an English teacher. Today we're going to talk about some of the skills, knowledge and techniques that you need to pass an English 11 Plus paper, as well as some common grammar mistakes made by native speakers, which are often tested in the 11 Plus English. So we've got 3 more sessions after this, every Thursday at 5, looking at different skills you need and question types. So hope to see you again. Okay, so let's see, what are we doing today? So today we're going to start by an introduction of the 11 Plus English paper. What is it testing, what you should know. In this session, we are going to focus on reading, which is the largest part of the English 11 Plus, and also grammar, which can be tested in 2 ways. You guys will have a chance to answer some exam-style questions, and we'll go through the answers. So just a quick point, I can't see who answered what. I can see the totals, but not the names. So please don't worry about your scores in this session. This is just for practice, and your answers are completely anonymous. If you have any questions as we go along, you can message me in the chat so I can see the messages and I will endeavour to respond. You can also raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And if you have any general questions about English or the 11 Plus, of course, you can also ask at the end of the session. So I'm going to stick around for a few minutes at 6 o'clock if you have any more general questions, and I will try my best to help you. Okay, so let's get going. So the English section of your 11 Plus will test your reading ability, grammar knowledge, spelling and punctuation. Punctuation being full stops, capital letters, apostrophes, and so on. So what's a little tricky, there are a few different formats of the English 11 Plus paper, but the most common, the standard format, and the one which we use in our practice papers, which you can get through the app, has 56 questions, so 20 are reading, 12 are grammar, 12 are spelling, and 12 are punctuation. Sometimes even with the standard paper, there might be a double reading, which means you have 2 reading passages in one paper, one at the beginning, one at the end. So that would mean 40 reading questions of 56. So a top tip, it's definitely worth checking when you get your paper. When you sit down, very quickly look through to the end, see if there's 1 reading passage or 2. So as you can see, reading is the largest part of the English paper. For the reading questions, you will get them as a multiple choice. So there'll be a question and then there will be 5 options for you to choose. Unlike your SATs where you have to write some answers, these will all be multiple choice. You just choose the correct option. The reading questions are testing, of course, vocabulary. They will probably be using synonyms. So we're going to look at this a little bit later, you may remember from school. And also testing speed. So if you read average speed for a 10-year-old, it's going to take you around 5 minutes to read the story. And so for each question, that will give you about 30 seconds per question. So that's the speed we're going to take today, just to get you used to it, about 30 seconds per question. The faster you read, the more time you have, the slower you read, the less time, and the harder this paper will be. So one of the best ways to practice is to practice reading ability. As much reading as possible. You'll get homework after this session with a full reading passage, so do that, and also as much reading papers as you can get. So as for the grammar, this can be tested in two ways. You might get some questions which are testing parts of speech. So by parts of speech, I mean verbs, nouns, adjectives, and so on. You will identify these. You might get a couple of questions on that. And you might also get sentence completion questions. So this is where you have a sentence with a gap, and you need to choose one of 5 words to complete it. The spelling and punctuation, these are tested in a different way. Find the mistakes. We're going to be looking at these at a later session. So punctuation next week and spelling the week after. Okay, so let's get started with reading. Here's a little section from a reading passage. So let's read this together. When Alexander had conquered all the kingdoms of the world, and when all the universe trembled at his glance, he called before him the most celebrated magicians of those days and said to them, "You who are wise and who know all that is written in the book of fate, tell me what I must do to live for many years and to enjoy this world, which I have made mine." Okay, usually the questions follow the same order as the passage, thankfully. This is the beginning of a story, so now we are going to look at the first question. Okay, so here's our first question. What did Alexander want from the magicians? Please select the correct option, A, B, C, D, and you can vote. I'll give you 30 seconds. Passage is here at the bottom if you need it. Okay, that's halfway. A few more seconds. Okay, I think we've had the answers in. So you've chosen this one, A, to know the secret of a long life. Okay, so here we have a straightforward example of finding information in the text. So in this question, what did Alexander want from the magicians? So you can see there's this intro part and then he starts speaking. So this is where we're looking. And you've got this, again, introduction. You who are wise, who know all that's written. So this is just flattery. He's flattering them. And we get to this part. This is what he wants. Tell me what I must do to live for many years and to enjoy this world. So you're absolutely correct. This is the correct answer, A. He wanted to know the secret of a long life, how he can live for many years. Okay, so this is just a question of finding the information in the text. But of course you need to read carefully because as you can see, we have some of the phrasing in the options is the same as in the reading text. So we've got a lot of repetition. So this is just to distract you, but as you correctly discovered, the correct answer is this, to know the secret of a long life. Okay, let's have a look at another type of question. And again, I will give you 30 seconds for this one. Okay, so about halfway. Excellent, we've had some answers, a few more seconds. Okay. Great stuff. So we've had some answers in. We've had A and D. Now let's have a look. These are the answers that have come. So, which of the following statements is not true? Okay, this is another finding information type of question, but instead of finding the correct information, you are finding wrong information. So make sure that you read the question carefully to find negatives. Which of the following statements is not true? Okay, now in this question, we have some synonyms. So we've got Alexander respected the magicians. So this word respected. And we have this quote from him calling them wise. So we think, okay, it looks like he respects them. He's calling them wise. B, we've got Alexander called only the most famous magicians. Now, famous, another word for this, another synonym is here, the most celebrated. Celebrated means admired, renowned. So, okay, we can see they're the most famous. Yes, it's true, they're the most celebrated magicians. C, Alexander was the most powerful ruler on earth. Okay, we see that he had conquered all the kingdoms of the world. All the kingdoms of the world. So we can see that he definitely is the most powerful ruler on earth. There are no kingdoms left. He has all of them. D, Alexander knew what was in the book of fate. Okay, now this option. So here, we can see that somebody knows what is in the book of fate. But if we read carefully, we can see that this is Alexander telling the magicians that they know, you who are wise and who know all that is written in the book of fate. So it's the magicians who know what is written in the book of fate. So in fact, this one is not true. We can double check that by checking E. So E should be correct. Alexander wanted to live for hundreds of years. Well, yes, we found that in the first question. We know that he does. Okay, so all of these options are true, and the one that is not true is D. Alexander didn't know what was in the book of fate. The magicians do. So this is why he's going to them for advice. Excellent, fantastic, well done, you guys. So just a quick note on this that we are talking about, synonyms. So synonyms are different words with the same meaning. So this is very common. You're not going to find the exact same phrase in the question as you are in the reading. The question will say the most famous, the reading will say the most celebrated. The question will say like this, he respected the magicians, and in the reading there will be an example of his respect. So we're looking for synonyms between the question and the text. It won't be the exact wording. This is part of what they are doing to distract you. Okay, let's go on. Let's have a look at the next part of the story. Okay. "O king," said the magicians, "he who drinks of the fountain of youth need not fear death, but he who seeks this water must pass through two mountains which open and close constantly, and scarcely a bird can fly between them and not be crushed to death. The bones lie in high piles of the king's sons who have lost their lives in this terrible trap. But if you should pass safely, you can take the treasure." Okay, let's look at another question. So again, I will give you 30 seconds for this one. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay, so let's check. We've had some answers for A and some answers for B. Let's have a look. Okay, which of the following have tried to get through the closing mountains? Okay, this is another type of question. As you can see, this is a question where you have to choose two options. It might look a little bit different in the practice app, instead of saying choose two, it might say which two of the following, da 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 da. But anyway, you can see that all of your options are two options. So these are quite easy to spot. There's usually only one or two questions like this per reading passage, so not very many. And you just need to choose one letter, the same as all the others. Okay, so we have the options of birds, kings, princes, and magicians. Now, magicians, nobody's chosen magicians. Very good, well done. The magicians haven't said anything about them trying to get through. And in fact, they're saying it's pretty dangerous and he probably shouldn't. So we've got birds, kings, princes. Now, a bird is mentioned here. Scarcely a bird can fly between them. Scarcely means only just, almost not. So a bird can get through, but almost not. Okay, so we know that birds have tried to get through the closing mountains. What else? The bones lie in high piles of the king's sons who have lost their lives in this terrible trap. Okay, now this is the second answer, the king's sons. We can see we have kings, we can see we have princes, but the full phrase is king's sons. Again, this is another example of a synonym. So who is the son of a king? The son of a king is a prince. So our two options are number 1 and number 3. So the correct answer here is B, 1 and 3. These type of questions just take a little bit more time because, of course, you're looking for two answers, and be aware that they might be in different paragraphs. In this case, it's a little bit, they're all together, but in the real reading, they might be across paragraphs. So it just might take a little bit more time to find your answers. Excellent work. Well done. Okay, let's go on and have a look at another question. So again, I'm going to give you a reading, 30 seconds. Okay, a few more seconds. Great, so we've had some answers coming in for A and B. Let's have a look. What is the best summary for this section? Paragraph 5. Okay, so the key words here are the verbs. The magicians warn Alexander. Alexander summons the magicians. The magicians cannot help him. The magicians threaten him. Alexander sets out on the adventure. Okay, well, we know this comes afterwards. Perhaps he's going to set out on the adventure, or perhaps he'll decide that it sounds a bit scary and he doesn't want to. But this is not, there's nothing mentioned in this section. Okay, so we know it's not that one. The magicians threaten Alexander. Now, these two words are quite similar, warn and threaten, but threaten is hostile. Threaten is saying that you will hurt somebody. For example, if, your brother's being naughty, your mum might threaten to take his phone away or something. So it's saying you punish somebody or hurt them. And that's not what they're doing, right? They're not saying they will do anything. They're just saying it's very dangerous. So we know it's not that one. The magicians cannot help Alexander. Well, they give him the information that he wants. He wants to know how to live forever. And they tell him, drink from the fountain of youth. So this is not correct. They can help him. It's just scary what he must do. So we've got these two options, A and B. Okay. And again, we have these words, so these verbs. Now, warn is quite similar to threaten, but instead of saying that you are going to hurt somebody, you're just letting them know that something is dangerous. You make them realize that what they want to do is dangerous, a danger. Summons is you order somebody to come. So, for example, the headmaster might summon you to his room. You order somebody to come. Alexander has summoned the magicians, and then he's asked them a question, and the question is about how he can live forever. And in this section, the magicians are answering his question. So this has happened, in fact, earlier in the story. So this one is actually earlier. This one, E, actually happens later. He calls them to come, and then they have this conversation. Okay, so the best option to summarize this section, this paragraph, is A. The magicians warn Alexander. In this part, they are speaking. They are telling him all the dangers. They're telling him it's a terrible trap, and how dangerous it is. All of the people who have died trying to access this magical water. Okay, so the best option here was A. Well done, guys. If you've got this correct, fantastic. Let's have a look at another question type. So a few more seconds. What type of text is this? Okay, and we've got some answers come in. We've got A, we've got P, and well done. Okay, what type of text is this? So this kind of question you will probably get at the end, towards the end of all of your reading questions, when you've read the whole story and got an idea. What type of text is this? Or they can also ask you something like, where would you be most likely to read this? Okay, so this is just, do you understand the main gist of the story, the type of text that it is, like what's the purpose of this story? And let's go through and have a look. So it's quite helpful to know the meanings of all of these ones, and a couple more that I will mention. So a poem, well, you know, a poem is the kind of language which especially uses rhyme and rhythm, roses are red, violets are blue, this kind of thing. This is a poem. We know it's not a poem. In fact, it's written in the opposite, which you may remember from school, prose. So this is not a poem. This is written in prose with dialogue. A screenplay, very similar to a script, except a screenplay is for a film. So in a screenplay or in a script, you have the names of the characters, and then you have dialogue here. So this is the format of a screenplay or a script. This is not what we have. A proverb, okay, so a proverb is a saying, kind of moral saying, but it's usually very short, just one sentence or perhaps two sentences. For example, you can say, I don't know if you'll know this one, a stitch in time saves nine. That's what your grandmother might say if she's very old. A proverb is a very short folk saying. So we know this is not a proverb, it's very long. Okay, we have an article, we have a legend. Now, what are each of these? So a legend is a traditional story, usually with famous historical characters. So if you think, for example, like Robin Hood, this is a legend, or Merlin and King Arthur, these are legends. They are traditional stories with famous characters. And what about an article? So an article is usually found in a newspaper or a magazine, often factual, not always, but often factual. And it's something that you read, usually giving you information about the news, about current affairs, or about a specific topic. But it isn't a story, a fictional story. It's usually informative. It's giving you information about something. Okay, so the correct answer here, we know that we have this story where there's a king who has conquered the world. He's speaking to a group of magicians and asking them how he can live forever. This sounds pretty magical, right? So the correct answer here is B. This one is a legend. So this is actually a famous Greek myth, a Greek legend about Alexander the Great. Similarly, if you get this kind of question, where would you be most likely to read this? It might say something like a book of legends, or a newspaper. Instead of saying an article, it would say you would read this in a newspaper, and so on. The only other ones I want to point out is biography and autobiography. So hopefully you know these. A biography is the story of somebody's life, the history of a person's life written by somebody else. An autobiography is the story of my life. I am writing about my history, my life. So it might ask you the type of text, and any of these words could come up, and you just need to identify what kind of story it is. Was there magic in there? Was there information? What was it telling you? Okay, let's have a look at a different type of reading question that you might get at the end. Okay, now you can see here there is a quote, and then this is the question. I'll give you 30 seconds again for this one. Okay, a few more seconds for this one. Excellent. Okay, so we've had B, option B has been chosen. Okay, now this type of question I mentioned at the beginning, so we've moved on to grammar. This type of question is a parts of speech question, but it's usually linked to the reading. So you get this quote at the beginning, and all of these words are taken from the quote so that you can see them in action. You can see them as they appear. Now, okay, everyone's chosen this word before. So preposition. Prepositions are those little words like on, in, to, over, and they show placement, relationship between things, where something is or what time. For example, at the station is a place, at 12 o'clock is the time, in the house is a place, in the summer is a time. And if we look in the sentence, we find this word before, and this is showing the place of the magicians in relation to Alexander. So Alexander called the magicians before him. So you guys are absolutely correct. Well done. Very good. You've been listening hard at school, so fantastic. So this word before, this is a preposition. Now, we've got these other words. These type of words might crop up in your 11 plus. So Alexander, this is a noun. A person, place, or a thing is a noun. We've got this word is an article, definite article. We've got them, which comes here. He said to them. So this is a pronoun. It's, in this case, an object pronoun. And we have this word when at the beginning. Here, when is a conjunction. So it's connecting two different clauses. You can see here you've got Alexander, the subject, and here is a verb. What did he do? Alexander had conquered, and then here we've got another clause, another subject. He is the subject, the person, and called is the verb. So we've got these two, and they're connected by this one, a conjunction. Hopefully you know all these words. Anyway, you know preposition, which is fantastic. Let's do another one like this. Great stuff, guys. Excellent, well done. Okay, so let me end it. We've had answers for A and for D. Very good, excellent. Okay, so you've got both of the nouns. Both of these are nouns. Well done, fantastic. And then we have some other words. We've got this one. This is a pronoun, me. We've got this one, wise. This one is an adjective. It describes a noun, a wise person, for example. And we've got this word. This is a modal verb, type of verb. And we have these two words, and these are both nouns. So a noun is a person, place, or a thing. Can also be an abstract idea. So you can have an abstract idea, a thing, and also something concrete, something real, a building, a house, a sheep. Okay, so we've got these two nouns. We know that both of these are nouns, and we're looking here for a common noun. Okay, so common noun, the opposite of a common noun is called a proper noun. So a proper noun is the name for a specific person or a place or a thing. Jenny, for example, is a person's name. And you can see something about that there is always a capital letter for somebody's name. Rome is the name for a specific place, a city. And again, you can see there is a capital letter here. So the thing with proper nouns is they refer to one specific thing and there is always a capital letter. So this one, the Book of Fate, this is in fact a proper noun. We can tell that by the capitals, and also it's referring to a specific book in this magical story. And that leaves us with this one, years. This one is a noun. It is, in fact, a common noun. So a common noun is always lowercase. It doesn't use capital letters unless it's at the beginning of a sentence. It's the general name for a group of things. We use the same word boat, right, for many different boats. We don't call them all different things. Boat is many different boats. Most nouns are common nouns, and that's why they're called common, meaning usual or ordinary. Excellent, well done, fantastic. So good work, and well done for knowing both of these are nouns, A and D. So these are some of the parts of speech that you might be tested on. They might ask you to identify some of these parts of speech. You can see we've got prepositions, we've talked about that, which show place or time. Verbs, you can see, which show action or states, drive, run, walk, and so on. Adjectives, big, small, lucky, and so on. Remember that adjectives describe a noun, so they will be referring to a noun. A big house, for example, a small key, a lucky person, they always come with a noun. You have these adverbs, luckily, slowly, which come with a verb instead of a noun. He drives slowly, she talks quickly, and so on. Proper nouns, we looked at that. They're always going to have capital letters, Jeff, Bob, Italy, and so on. Common nouns, these ones are general. So they might pit these two against each other. So now you know which one is a proper noun, which one is a common noun. Pronouns are words that we use instead of nouns. So, for example, he replaces the man or Alexander or a man, and so on. Him is an object pronoun. His is a possessive pronoun, as well as an adjective, but here a pronoun, possessive pronoun. And we have these articles, a, an, and the. Okay, and the only other one that I would like to mention while we're on this topic is, very briefly, a fronted adverb or adverbial, a fronted adverbial. So this is an adverb, like luckily, slowly, or a phrase, an adverbial phrase. I think you will have studied this at school. This is a huge part of Year 6 English. So fronted, it just means that it comes to the front of the sentence. So instead of normally you would say we drove home slowly, for example, if I want to make it a fronted adverbial, I just move it to the front. Slowly, we drove home, full stop. Or luckily, you can say, for example, this is my subject, she passed the exam, and I want to put the adverb at the front, so I put it here. Luckily, she passed the exam. This is tested sometimes in punctuation, just skipping ahead a little bit, because you want a comma after it. And they might just ask you that. So you might have to identify what is a fronted adverbial. It could also be a phrase, for example, as slowly as possible instead of slowly. It could be the whole phrase, as slowly as possible, as quick as a flash. So you're looking for anything that comes before the subject, describing how the action was done. This is a fronted adverbial. This is something you've been learning in year 6, so hopefully it is familiar to you. Just be aware that this might be a question in the papers. They might ask you to identify this, a fronted adverbial. Happily, it will only be one question. Okie doke. So let's have a quick look. Here are some of the things to pay attention to in the reading. So remember timing. We're looking at roughly 30 seconds per question, assuming that you're going to take about 5 minutes to read the passage. The homework that you will get today is the full length passage. So you would like to time yourself doing today's homework for around about 15 minutes because we've already answered some of the questions in the session. This is giving you that, by the way, is a number 5. I hope you can see that. That's giving you about 30 seconds per question and 5 minutes to read. So this is the speed at which you want to be going. Don't get stuck on any one question. If you don't know something, you can guess and just move on. You can always come back to it at the end. So read the question carefully. Remember that sometimes it might be a negative. So which of the following statements is not true, for example? It might be a question where you have to choose 2. So just be sure that you read the question carefully and understand what it is asking you to do. Check your answers in the passage. They often give you a line number if there is a quote. But anyway, if you've read it, you should be able to find the area that you're looking for, and you can double check your answer rather than just guess. So it's much easier with paper. You can just flick back and forth and check between the reading and the questions. So keywords and synonyms, we looked at this, of course. Remember that you might not find the exact same word in the reading as you get in the questions. So, for example, we saw this, king's sons. We also saw princes, celebrated instead of respected. So you're going to see different words, but with the same meaning. Summarizing, this is another type of question. You'll get just 1 or 2 questions asking you to summarize a paragraph or summarize the story. Parts of speech, we looked at this, nouns, verbs, adjectives. You guys did really well. So that is, if you know this, an easy couple of points, because you don't need to find any information. You don't need to read for it. This is knowledge that you are bringing into the exam with you. So if you know this, which you do, because you've got this correct, well done, then you will be able to answer these couple of questions and get an easy couple of marks. Also making inferences. We're going to look at this a little bit more next week. So this is about how the characters are feeling in the story. Okay, so let's go on. Let's have a look at another type of question, another part of the exam. So in this part of the test, there are 5 different options, and they're marked like this: A, B, C, D, E. This is how it will look in your 11+ exam if you get this type of question. Let's see if you guys want to have a vote. Which one of these do you think is the correct word to fill the gap here? Differ, different, difference. Excellent. Okay, so I'll stop it there. This one is just for fun. C and D, what do we have? Okay, well done. Excellent. So a lot of these questions are testing grammar. So here, for example, you need to choose the correct word form. So here you've got the verb differ. You've actually got two adjectives, and you've got the noun difference. Okay. Now here we have the other noun, this plural noun, options. So we know that because we just looked at this in the parts of speech, we need an adjective to describe a noun. So we want one of these adjectives. Okay, now you can see there's also this option, and this one is in fact testing spelling, because you can see that it's very similar to D, but actually we're missing a letter here. Different. So this is not the correct spelling. So you've got some questions, some options, which are testing grammar. You've got some options which are testing spelling, and you also have some options which are testing vocabulary, because we have this adjective diffident, which is an adjective, but it's actually from a different word family. It means kind of similar to shy. So we know that we don't have 5 shy options, we have 5 different options. So the correct answer here, the one that we want, is this one, D, different. Okay, now let's have a look at an example question. This appears a little differently. As you can see, it's in a multiple choice format, but it's the same style of question. So I'll give you 30 seconds to... Oh, okay, I'm going to finish there. So, well done. So we've got D and E are some of the options. Okay, now this is testing verbs, verb matching. You're matching the verb to the rest of the sentence. This is the most common. This is very frequently tested in sentence completion. Very, very often, what is going to be missing is a verb, and you need to match the verb to the rest of the sentence. So how do we do that? Okay, well, you can see here, just before the gap, we have a contracted version of will, they'll, they will. And after the gap, we have a verb pattern. We have an ing verb pattern. So you might need to read around the whole passage, but also you should definitely check just before and just after the gap to see what comes just before, just after. Now we know that after will, we need the base form. So we cannot say will tired. We cannot say will tiring. This is not correct, is it? So we need the base form. They will tire of, they will be tired. And then we look after the gap, we have this ing form. Now, when we have this verb pattern, so tire, and then the thing that they are getting tired of, we need this preposition. So sooner or later they will tire. And what will they tire? Or the meaning is get bored. What will they tire of? Complaining. Okay, so this is an example. This is pretty much the most common type of question you're going to get. This is verb matching, and the way to answer is just make sure that you check before the gap, after the gap, and if you get a passage, then the other sentences to see what the tense is. So this is another type of verb matching question. So I'll give you 30 seconds for this. Great stuff, guys. A few more seconds. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay, let's end it there. We've got some answers A and C. So let's have a look. These are our options, A and C. Okay, now this is a super common mistake, and I think this is why it comes up in so many different 11 plus papers. When we're making guesses about the past, so we know this is in the past, the ground was wet underfoot, he said. So we know that this whole passage is written in the past. When we're making guesses about the past, what might have happened, we use this form all the time. So modal with have with past participle. And maybe you're like, I don't know what any of that is. So a modal verb, it's these type of words. So must, should, could, would, can, could, we don't use can. Okay, so these are all modal verbs. Have, just the word have, it doesn't change. And the past participle is the third form of the verb. So usually ed. For example, walk, the past participle is walked. Dance, danced. Look, looked. But it can also be the third form. So for example, if the verb is irregular, give, the past participle is the third. Give, gave, given, for example. Or for speak, it would be speak, spoke, spoken. So it's sometimes called the third form. Okay, now this pattern is how we make guesses in the past. And the most common mistake that English speakers make is with this part, instead of knowing that it is have, they sometimes will hear people speak and think that it is of. So, for example, we must have spoken to her. And you see this written down and you see this all over. In fact, this is not correct. So when you have this pattern and you know that someone is making a guess about the past, we want to always use this. The modal, must, should, could, would, have, doesn't change. And then the third form of the verb. We've got the third form of the verb. We've got the E. So we just need these two parts, the modal and have. Here we do not have. Here we do not have. Here we do not have. I can't say. And here also there is no have. So the correct option is A. It must have rained last night. He's making a guess using this correct pattern. When we speak quickly, it sounds like of. So for example, if I'm speaking very quickly, usually what happens is I contract, and instead of saying have, I'll say of. I'll say it must have rained, it must have. But the correct way to write it would be like this, like a contraction. It must have rained. So we don't use of in this construction. Okay, another common mistake. Let me set the question, 30 seconds for this. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay, let's finish there. Time's up. So we've got some A and some C. Let's have a look. Oh my goodness, you're so much than me. Okay, so this is a comparative. We're comparing two things, you and me. When we're making a comparative, the common mistake, this is a common mistake, and it's, again, often tested. If we have a short adjective, so remember that an adjective is something we use to describe a noun. So here it's fast, or it could be the opposite, slow, or it could be tall, or it could be the one we saw earlier, wise, or anything like that. If it's a short adjective, one syllable, and we want to make a comparison and say that one person is more of this than the other, all we need to do is put this at the end, ER, or if there's already an E, just R. So fast becomes faster, slow becomes slower, tall, taller, wise, wiser. This is how we make a comparison with short adjectives. Only if it's a long adjective, for example, dangerous, if it's a long adjective, then we will put more at the beginning. More dangerous, more interesting, more unusual, and so on. But for short adjectives, we only change the ending. And it's not correct to say more faster. You do hear people say this. It's not correct. The correct way to make a comparative with the short adjectives is just change the endings. Fast, faster, slow, slower. So the correct option here we can see is C. Faster. You're so much faster than me. Fantastic. Let's do another one. Okay. 30 seconds for this. Amazing, good stuff, you guys. Okay, so I've had a few answers. 5 more seconds if there's anyone else waiting. Okay, so we had D come through. Excellent. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got here some articles and we've got some determiners. Now, these articles, a and an, we can only use them with singular nouns, so one thing. A house, one house. A book, one book. An apple, one apple. And what do we have after the gap? Mice. Okay, so be careful with these irregular plurals. So mice is the plural of mouse. So we can say one mouse, a mouse, but mice is plural, is many. So we know we can't use these. And then we have some other options. Them, this, and those. Now this, the determiner, also we can only use it with singular nouns, this and that as well. We can only use these words with a singular noun, with one thing. So not that one. Then we have them and we have those. You guys have all chosen those. So would it be correct to say them? Them mice are back. This is a common mistake. Again, you hear people using this all the time, but in actual fact, mice is a noun, it's a plural noun, and them is a pronoun. So we remember from a bit earlier, you use a pronoun instead of a noun. You do not use them together. So we cannot use this pronoun followed by a noun. So this one is also wrong. So the correct answer is those. Excellent. Well done, you guys. So you got that correct. So those or these determiners These are the ones that we can use with plurals. Okay, so this is another common thing that is tested, and these words will be tested against each other. A and this, that, those and these, but only these ones, those and these, can be used with plural nouns. Okay, let's just have a quick look at how the sentence completion will look in the practice app and in your paper. So the format is going to be not just one question, one sentence at a time. In fact, it will come like this, like a passage. And here there are two, but really you will have line numbers, let's say for example 1, 2, 3, 4, and on each line there will be just one gap, one mistake, with 5 options for you to choose. So this is the form that you're going to find the sentence completion questions come in. So when I say check through to see the tense, that's what I mean. So for example, in this gap we're missing the verb, and to answer this we will need to look through the rest of the text to find out what tense the verbs are in. Is it the past? Is it the present? Is it the future? And so on. Let me quickly give you this question as a little practice, the last one that we're going to do for today. A few more seconds. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, we've got A, we've got D, fantastic. Now, this verb, born, this verb is in fact passive. So bear, the active, is what the mother does. So you can say, for example, like the mum bears a child. It's kind of a very old-fashioned way to say give birth to. So we're not saying that she gave birth, we're saying that her mother gave birth to her, so we use this form passive. She was born. We know that it's not this one because this one is in the present, and here we find that the story is in the past, and not only that, but we even have a date. We know that this is definitely in the past. Okay, so this is how it's going to look when you get your homework. Let's go through. So these are some of the typical grammar errors that we've looked at today, and these pop up very often in the 11 plus English paper. You may not get all of them, you may just get one, you may get 1 or 2. Let's quickly have a look at the mistakes. So you could have told me, the mistake is highlighted in red. We know that this is the pattern that we're looking for. We've got a modal verb, and here we've got the past participle of the verb, tell, told, and here we want have. So you could have told me is the correct form here. It's more harder, but it's not the most hardest. We've got this little short adjective, hard, so we know that we only change the endings for these short adjectives. We only want to change the ending. We don't need more and we don't need most. We just want to say it's harder, but it's not the hardest. And again here, he's the one what told me off. So in this case, we want a relative pronoun. So the correct relative pronoun for a person would be who. We can't use what for a person, and it's not a relative pronoun. And this one, we've got this noun. It's a plural noun, people, and we're using this object pronoun. That's not correct. So we want something like those people running. Wonderful, excellent, good stuff, you guys. Now we're at the end, so I'm just going to read this through. You should try to give an answer even if the test is harder than you expected. The guess that you make might be the difference that helps you pass. Okay. So these slides are going to be available for you in the app. Just a quick overview of what we've looked at today. So in the reading comprehension, think about timing. Remember You want to spend not longer than 30 seconds. You want to spend not longer than 5 minutes reading the text through the first time. Read carefully, check your answers in the passage, think about keywords and synonyms, think about summarising and the type of text, for example, a legend, a poem, a biography, a screenplay, a script, these kind of words. Parts of speech, hopefully you know all of these from school. You can quickly brush up on them. So verbs, the difference between common nouns and proper nouns. Remember that proper nouns are capitalised, common nouns are lowercase. Prepositions, adjectives, adverbials and fronted adverbials. And also grammar choices. So read carefully before and after the gap. Try to match your answer to the whole passage and avoid typical mistakes. So again, we've looked at them here. Instead of might have done, might have done. More better, we delete more. We just need the ER ending. If it's a person, we want this relative pronoun who. And if you have a noun, plural noun, we don't want to choose a pronoun. We want to choose probably a determinant. Those ones are mine. Excellent. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. So homework for today. You've got a full passage. We only read 2 paragraphs. You have the whole story to read. It's about 650, 700 words. So for homework, finish reading the story about Alexander the Great and answer all the comprehension questions about it. Some of them we've done in the lesson already, so they will be super quick for you, which is why I would say 15 minutes. If you joined late, let's say maybe 20 minutes max to read the story and answer the questions. Do this as a timed practice so you can see how you get on with the reading type questions. And there are also 8 sentence completion grammar choice questions as well for you to complete for homework. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask. We're going to be doing another session focusing on reading next week. So you will get another reading practice for homework. This is so important. I strongly recommend that you do as much reading practice as you possibly can before your 11 plus. Since this is such an important part of the paper and you want to be able to read quickly. So that's what we're looking at next week with punctuation as well, and a different question type for punctuation. They use find the mistakes. So it was lovely to meet you all, and I hope that you've enjoyed the session, and I hope that there was something useful in there for you. And I hope that you will join us again next Thursday at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much. Goodbye.